Did you do it?
Yes.
What did it cost?
Everything.
I feel like a part of me has just died. I mean, my god, I just got put through the ringer and I don't even know where to start. I've played every Souls game and multiple other Souls-likes, but there is absolutely nothing that compares to the sheer Italian father-style belt whipping that Shadow of the Erdtree gives you. I'm serious, this is the hardest experience I've ever had. And this final boss, oh boy, let me tell you something. I'll touch on this later, but it is the hardest boss I've ever seen. Like, I spent 3 full days trying to beat this thing, and I was banging my head against the wall. For the life of me, I just could not figure it out, and then I finally beat it. And it was one of the most satisfying moments of my life, but I felt drained. I felt like it cost me everything. And the first thing I did when I finished was start another playthrough, because Shadow of the Erdtree is yet another FromSoft masterpiece.
You can't keep getting away with it!
I don't know how these guys keep doing it. Like, I'm not even fanboying over this. I look over Souls games with more of a critical eye because I love them so much. And there are some minor criticisms that I have, but everything about this experience is just astonishing. How do they keep making worlds and bosses and moments that just blow you away? Like, at this point, you think there isn't really much that could surprise me anymore about Souls games, but it just keeps happening. Shadow of the Erdtree is, in my opinion, a top 2 DLC expansion of all time. I'm not joking about that. Between this and the Old Hunters from Bloodborne. And it proves without a shadow of a doubt,
This guy stinks!
that FromSoftware is the best game developer in the industry today. No question. There is no other studio that can touch what these guys have been doing for over a decade. Like, it's really not fair. The consistent masterpieces these guys put out. No matter how much you want to review bomb the thing because it's too hard.
The depths of your foolishness!
Oh, my bleed build isn't melting the boss anymore. Now I actually have to fight him.
Stop crying. It won't do any good. And anyway, you have a lot of work to do, starting right now.
But what makes Shadow of the Erdtree such a masterpiece of a DLC, and how does it expand upon what the base game did? Well, onward to the realm of Shadow. I will not be far behind. So strap in, boys and girls, and let's get down to business. So I hope you played this game, because I'm not going to hold back on the details. It's been long enough. You've had time to play it. Enough's enough. Let's get into it. I think we all made the mistake of thinking that since you had to beat Moog to enter the DLC, that was the level you could be at to enter the DLC. Nope! I spawned in, things were going well, killed some enemies, got to some bosses, and realized I'm not doing anything. And they're doing everything. So I was curious and I looked it up, and apparently the recommended level was 150. I was 115. Shit. This is true endgame content, but we all assumed that as long as we met the conditions, we could do it. That's probably why everyone first thought the game was harder than it actually was, especially me. But from a gameplay perspective, not much has changed in terms of what you do, but like any DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree brought a ton of cool new weapons to the game. I haven't used every single one, but the ones I did use, oh boy, were they fun to mess around with. They introduced a new weapon type, light greatswords, which have similar effects to the greatswords but are faster and way less, and there were a few I dabbled in. Milady, Rorlana's twin blades, which give you 2 different elemental ashes of war, pretty damn satisfying once you get the timing down. They also introduced great katanas, including one that's super effective against dragons. Or, you could choose not to use any weapon, because we now have MMA, and the best thing about it, it's actually viable, and fun as shit to use.
And of all the superlative...
You put lifesteal on this thing and convert it to a blood weapon, oh my god, it's over. From a weapon point of view, the sandbox just got even more interesting. And the great part is, you get a ton of upgrade materials throughout the world, almost as if FromSoftware knew you were gonna want to experiment and go crazy with things. And if you have all the minor bell bearings that the round table hold, you can already just purchase the missing smithing stones if you don't find them out in the world. How's that for post-game support? But the real mechanic that is introduced are the blessings. You got 2 different types of stat boost. Shadow Tree fragments? Yeah, apparently it's pronounced Shadow Tree. There's some old English involved. How anyone is supposed to know that without anyone saying it is beyond me. But you can find these fragments throughout the world, and they will permanently boost how much damage you deal and how much damage you can take. And the condition is the same with the revered spirit ashes, which boost the amount of damage your spirits can deal and withstand. It also boosts how much damage Torrent can take, which still makes it important to find even for people like me who don't use spirit summons. These metrics matter more in Shadow of the Erdtree than your overall level, although you do still need to be leveling up. But you won't be leveling up as much since there's way more runes needed to do so, since this is the endgame. So to mitigate that, the blessing system was implemented to give a new type of progression system to the DLC. And only for the DLC, because the effects only apply when you're in the Land of Shadow. Once you leave and go back to the Lands Between, everything resets. This is amazing because it makes it so that if you do a New Game Plus, you're not massively overpowered. But the gameplay is the start. What really matters is how much things have changed in the Land of Shadow. So, it's time we discuss the Land of Shadow. Before launch, Miyazaki stated that the Land of Shadow would be about the size of Limgrave.
My ass!
I don't know what Limgrave he was talking about, but this place is much bigger than that. More like Limgrave combined with Liurnia. Maybe even bigger. This is a smaller version of the Lands Between, and by that I mean somehow around every corner there's more. The diversity of areas, the unique enemies, the skies above. Now it's nowhere near as big as the Lands Between, obviously, so there's not going to be an abundance of caves and ruins around, and it's not going to take you as long to fully explore, but there's still a lot of meaningful content here, way more than a lot of open world games offer. But throughout your journey, you will have the consistent backdrop of your new monument, the Shadow Tree. No, it's not the Halig Tree like we all theorized, but it still gives this world, yet again, a breathtaking art design. The first moment you walk into Gravesite Plain and you see the backdrop with your future locations, just like your first moment in Livgrave, this is surreal. I mean, we knew this was coming, we saw it in the trailer, but actually seeing it in-game somehow still hits you hard. But unlike the Erdtree, which gives a feeling of radiance and magical fantasy, the Shadow Tree is just eerie. Like, it feels like something is wrong here. And honestly, the closer I got to it, the more intimidated I was. I mean, it's shriveled up, barely dripping sap, there's pieces of it falling down, and the shrouds of light coming down really make it known this is the Shadow of the Erdtree.
He said it! He said it!
But the actual areas themselves, once again, are just mesmerizing. They're just begging for you to explore them. And there's always going to be something exciting and notable to find here. You could just be wandering in a cave somewhere, finish up with everything, walk out onto a completely different area, and the further you go, the more you realize, holy shit, I'm in f***ing Mordor right now. I don't like this. Holy shit. Oh my god, I don't feel safe. Is something about to fly down at me right now? Jagged Peak is peak. Or you could just be going through some woods, find a descending rock path, this always leads to something, and then eventually wind up on the Cerulean coast, which looks absolutely beautiful. Then if you go further, you find this giant hole and think, okay, I guess that's it, and then accidentally fall in, but then realize it goes down further, keep going down, and eventually wind up at the Stone Coffin Fissure, which, coincidentally, is one of the most important areas in the game. Or you could just be exploring the Shadow Keep, the most notable dungeon in the game, be having an absolute blast. Oh, what's this ladder here? Wow, I wonder where this leads. Oh, we got some catacombs. Oh, this was pretty good. What's at the end of this, I wonder? I'd like to go back now, please. The same feelings you got in the base game when you got to a new area is the same feeling you're gonna get here. And it's made even better with the walkout moments. You know what I mean. Going through a tunnel and then emerging into some otherworldly location. It's insane how much this game just beats you over the head with its art style. But that's how it looks. How does it play? Well, let's start from the beginning. The minute you walk into the Land of Shadow, you're going to be greeted with the key set-piece enemies in this game. The Furnace Golems. These guys are cool as shit and intimidating as shit. Fighting them, though, is tedious as shit. Avoid his stomps, hit his legs, knock him down, visceral attack, rinse and repeat. Trust me, it's not as fun as it sounds. They work more as set pieces rather than fights, so if you look at it that way, these things are still cool, and you don't have to fight them, so that's the good thing. In terms of memorable areas, Gravesite Plain is your typical starting area. Wide open plains, ruins scattered around, the phantom tombstones all over. Looks so cool. But this place not only has one, it has two legacy dungeons. Bellarat and Castle Ensis. Both kind of simple in their design, but they do the job well. Even though Castle Ensis is way more simple than I would have liked it to be. Like, if you told me, give me one memorable moment from Castle Ensis, I would have nothing, other than the boss, which we'll get to later. Bellarat, though, is very cool. All the shadow guys around, these damn horn soldiers, this piece of shit right here. Please stop attacking, please. When is it my turn? The gem of Shadow Altus is the Shadow Keep, Mesmer's fortress that somehow gets even bigger the more you explore it. This place is one of the best dungeons in Elden Ring, period, and there's a really good sense of verticality to it. You'll start with your typical knights and soldier enemies, and then as you climb up, you get more of these fire knights. Are they a good time? And in this castle, you would expect to find a lot of soldiers and knights. After all, why would it be a castle if you didn't? But what I wasn't aware was that half of this would be dedicated to keeping different dead creatures around. The Specimen Storehouse. Well, that's one way to describe it.
Is this some kind of twisted joke?
Probably the most unique area in all of Elden Ring. The Stone Coffin Fissure is Elden Ring trying to break into the platforming market. I don't think I have any better word to describe this. Can I just say, this opening shot looks like a painting. This is so awesome. This DLC has taken Hellblade 2 and stuffed it in a locker. Oh, you got beautiful vistas, huh? Think again. Speaking of verticality, jump into one coffin from the next, slowly making your way down. Oh, hey, it's these guys again. Excuse me? But all of that is nothing compared to what you will find in... oh boy. The Abyssal Woods. This place. You show up to the woods. Trees look evil in every way. Torrent can no longer be summoned because he's too frightened. The first messages you see, don't let it see you. Once you are seen, there is no escape. It cannot even be touched. Slowly walking through this forest on edge the entire time, wondering what is about to pop out at me. And then you see the matting hand, the scorch marks, and the possessed rats. The frenzied flame is here. So you think, oh, I have to watch out for the big Eye of Sauron that was in the base game. But no. Because FromSoftware, you motherfuckers, you actually did it. They brought back the Winter Lanterns.
Tell me he did not just say that.
That's right. Wandering through sections of the Abyssal Woods are these frenzy winter lanterns that cannot be hit, and they actually teleport to the player once they spot you. Now, given what I have said about the winter lanterns in the past, I should be infuriated, right? No, because FromSoftware utilized the winter lanterns as a stealth section because you got crouch after all in this game. You have to hide in these patches of high grass, which is the perfect way to use an enemy like this. You don't fight these guys, you avoid these guys. I honestly can't believe they took the most cheap enemy in the entire Souls series and actually made it something amazing. Wow, I sure hope nothing happens in this foggy crevice right here. The Abyssal Woods is also home to one of the best dungeons in the DLC next to the Shadow Keep, Midra's Manse. The second you walk in, this voice tells you not to approach.
Come no closer. No closer, I say. The madness wears.
But the layout, the effects of the frenzied flame, this entire mansion has just been trashed. You got shadow people throwing frenzied flame stones, and you got horned warriors patrolling the area as well as inquisitors. You see the picture of Midra and his wife, and then you find his wife's corpse up at the top floor here. Even a picture of what the woods looked like in the past. You have no idea what happened here, but that's what makes it all the more uneasy and fun. Aside from the main areas, the mini dungeons are also much better designed than in the base game. The caves and catacombs are expanded upon, and they're also made more complex. It doesn't feel anything like copy-paste anymore. Since they had less of these things to worry about, they were able to make them more complex and interesting, and that's something I appreciate. The Land of Shadow is once again gonna take you for a ride, and let's be honest, none of us are gonna want to get off it for a while. I'm still playing it as we speak. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, because it's here we arrive at my main criticism with Shadow of the Erdtree. For as great as the map is for the Land of Shadow, there are some areas that just straight up have nothing interesting to do there. The main ones I'm referring to are the two Finger Ruins and the entire southern coast. These all look incredible from an aesthetic standpoint, but what do you do there? Diddly dick, that's what. Like, could the Cerulean Coast be more than just a gateway to the Stone Coffin Fissure? We couldn't have anything else here? A cool boss? A hidden village? Nothing? The Finger Ruins are probably the biggest offenders of this because they take up gigantic chunks of the map. But all you do there is blow on the massive dicks in the center. Yeah, you get some cool talismans for doing it, but when you have these entire gigantic landscapes, this is all you could come up with? If there was any area you could have a cool-ass boss, these were the places. And Karo's Hidden Grave, I'm sorry, this area is a waste. You got another gorgeous flower landscape right next to a giant dead dragon. And what's there? A Tibia Mariner, one of the most pathetic bosses in the game, and a Deathrite Bird, one of the worst bosses in the game. By the way, both reused from the base game. What the hell? FromSoftware nailed this type of stuff in the base game. Where did it go here? But don't get it twisted. I don't think these areas are badly designed. I just think they're disappointing, and I wish there was more interesting things to do here. And that's something that FromSoftware should have easily been able to do. But despite all that, this doesn't take away from all the good in the Land of Shadow, because everything else here is so damn good. But of course, this is only the placeholder for what we truly came here for. It's time to dive into the boss, baby. Anyone got PTSD yet? Before I get into it, I have a question. Hey, Miyazaki.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
Before this, I was like, you know what? I've heard a lot of FromSoftware music, and it's epic, of course, but I don't really think anything can surprise me anymore. Never mind. When I said I felt like a part of me has died, it's because these guys took that part and proceeded to shove it directly up my ass. Well, this DLC is about Miquella. He knows a lot about that, doesn't he? I once thought these were the hardest set of bosses I have ever faced in my entire life, but after playing through, you realize that it's front-loaded and back-loaded. Miquella also knows about that. The first two bosses and the final boss really made me bang my head against the wall, and once I beat them, I literally let out a victory screech. Let's start at the beginning. Like every DLC boss FromSoftware has ever made, the majority of these main bosses not only is hard in their own right, but they are some of the best bosses I've ever played in a video game. They got everything. Mechanics, spectacle, epic moments, which I think is the same thing. And it hits you immediately.
I want a hippopotamus for Christmas.
Like I said early on, you will find out quick whether or not you are properly leveled and blessed for this DLC. The Black Jail Knight is that indicator early on. But once you get to the main bosses, shit starts going down. There are 11 Remembrance bosses. I won't go over all of them because we'd be here all day, but I'm just going to break down the memorable ones. Number 1 on this list, Divine Beast Dancing Lion, also known as the most aggressive mascot I've ever seen. Yeah, it's two guys in a costume. You can tell by the unnecessary foot shot. FromSoftware throws you to the wolves immediately. I've seen some people say this was a manageable boss, but even when I got to an appropriate level to fight it, this thing was still kicking my ass. Between the speed of its attacks, the second phase where it just descends into what I can only describe as epic madness, the goddamn music makes this fight itself. But these elemental after effects just make things even crazier. Yeah, the Hoarfrost Stomp is back. Surprise! The only problem I have with this fight is that sometimes the camera can get wonky where you're near a wall. That's most fights like this, so it's not really a big deal. It was at this point I was like, wow, that might be one of the hardest bosses I've ever faced. Could anything in this DLC match that difficulty? Yeah, the next one. Rolana Twin Moon Knight was as hard to learn as Melania. The speed and combos on this woman, like learning this shit is like trying to do calculus. But it doesn't matter because this fight is perfect. There is not 1 ounce of bullshit that I could spot when doing this fight. The Dancing Lion's after effects got a little mush after a while, but Rolana is a fight of pure skill. Can you read moves or can you not? Can you handle only hitting 1 attack and sometimes backing off? No? Well, There you go. The only boss I have ever faced that was unorthodox as this was probably Orphan of Kos. But all of this is before she... Alright, Pontiff Sullivan. No, I don't want to ride this bouncy castle. Please stop. Yes, did both. Shit, there's a third? This fight is absolutely brutal, but I love everything about it. It's perfect. Next, we got the poster boy of the DLC, Mesmer the Impaler. And did you know, guys, that those stripped of the grace of gold shall all meet death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame? Because I know. Picture the first 2 fights, but it actually gives you more time to get attacks in. That's Mesmer, and yeah, it's f***ing great. I think we could safely put Mesmer on the shortlist for the most badass looking moveset in boss history. I mean, some of the stuff is that good. For his main combo, he throws out a wave of fire, catches it with his spear, and swings at you with it. Is that not awesome? But these long combos that he's got are so fundamentally sound that all but one move can be fully dodged. And I say that because I just haven't figured it out yet. And that's before he goes to phase 2, where he unleashes the power of the base serpent. I've heard some people say that hitboxes on these snakes is wonky, but to be honest, I haven't seen anything weird with them at all. I never felt that an attack that hit me didn't actually hit me, but maybe that's just me. In terms of the build up to Mesmer, this fight lives up to it and then some. At the end of Winter Lantern Land, we have another banger, Midra, Lord of Frenzied Flame. That's right, the build up to this guy in the manse is incredible. You hear his cries throughout the level. I also think it's hilarious that he says this every time you walk in.
The depths of your foolishness.
But once you kill him, he, dude, please stop. Please, you don't need to do this, dude. Please stop. And once the frenzied flame appears over his head, everyone who did that ending had to be like,
He copied my whole fucking flow! Word for word, bar for bar!
Unlike the other ones though, Midra is not a terribly hard fight. It actually feels like something that could be in Dark Souls 1. But that is not a problem, because he makes up for it in everything else. And also, I was so scared that they were gonna make it so that you slowly build up madness just by looking at him, which thank God you don't. You just have to worry about everything else. The lore surrounding Midra is also incredible. He was trying to become the Lord of Frenzied Flame, but the Hornsent found out, showed up to his house, trashed it, shoved this gigantic IUD through his skull, and called it a day. But it worked, because afterwards, Midra sought to isolate himself for fear of it consuming him, and his wife Nanaya tried to encourage him to endure his pain, because the Frenzied Flame feeds on suffering and pain. Can't say I blame him, but he can't take it anymore, which is when he just says, "Fuck it, I'm pulling it out." And it's at this point his pain is so great that he is now worthy to become the Lord of Frenzied Flame. I mean, his head's gone. That's pretty painful. What do you want me to say? The music also sounds like something straight out of Bloodborne. This entire fight is an experience, but none as much as Baal the Dread, who is by far the greatest dragon fight FromSoftware has ever created. Yes, even better than Midir. Everything about this guy is epic. His look, his attacks, his arena, Jagged Peak in general. His moveset is fun to learn, but the damn phase transition is a thing of beauty. Up, here we go. Holy shit. Oh god, oh god. Dude, what is happening right now? Please. Oh god. Oh god, he's coming in. Baal is the perfect fight, because like Midir, he encourages you to target his head, so you can actually see this guy the entire time you fight him, unlike most other dragon fights. The spectacle of the lightning, the fact that he's attacking you with his exposed broken bone, the damn area wipe he has. Look, nothing I tell you in this video is going to compare to you actually fighting Baal himself. He is without a doubt one of the greatest bosses I have ever faced in any video game, and he might even be in the top 10 for Souls bosses in general. He's that incredible. But if that wasn't enough, his lore should hammer it home pretty damn well. This guy was banished to the Land of Shadow by none other than Placidusax, who he tried to betray. Yeah, you know why Placidusax is missing 2 heads? It's because of Bale. If you couldn't tell by the head still chomped into his back, which means this guy took on the Elden Lord of his time and mortally wounding him while surviving the encounter. Which means this guy is a badass. He's also set up perfectly with the Dragon Priestess, Egon here.
Bale! Vile Bale!
Oh, alright.
Oh, terror incarnate! There is life in me yet!
Jesus Christ, aren't you
I will
dramatic?
soon feast upon your heart! Mark my words! You too shall know fear!
Yeah, let's go kick Bale's ass! And the look of Jagged Peak too. Look at all these dead dragons. Who would possibly be able to survive such a hellscape? Well, this guy can. But overall, the bosses in Shadow of the Erdtree were literally everything I could ask for in an expansion. And aside from Commander Gaius, who I'm not wasting any breath talking about, and 1 or 2 that I could care less about, they are all incredibly satisfying and epic. But there is one that I haven't mentioned yet. One that deserves its own section. It's time for the final boss. So I have been cryptic for a while about the final boss because it is truly something that will floor you when you see it. But now I get to say everything. I get to get it off my chest because my good viewer, motherfucking Radahn is back!
You did. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
If you recall my Elden Ring video, I said this.
And a cool little detail is that aside from Radahn and Mohg, every demigod leaves behind a trace of themselves when they die. Which makes you wonder, why don't Radahn and Mohg have anything like this? Are they actually dead? Are we gonna fight them again? DLC?
Bro, did I call this or what? It was strange. Why did every demigod leave behind a piece of themselves except for Mohg and Radahn? And also, why did we have to kill both to enter the DLC? Mohg made sense because the entrance is in his boss room, but why Radahn? Well, we now have our answer. Miquella whisked Radahn's soul away once you killed him, and immediately took Mohg's body once you did the same to him, so Miquella used Mohg's body and put Radahn's soul in it to bring him back to life to be his king consort for the new age. As soon as it panned to Radahn's greaves in the cutscene, I lost my shit. Flashing his swords exactly like it was in the trailer, his theme blasting, it was freaking epic. But alright, that's the backstory. But aside from that, there has been a lot of discourse surrounding Radahn's involvement in the DLC. Mostly what you've heard is disappointment and frustration. I am here to tell you that after playing through the DLC 4 times now, I can confidently say that Promised Consort Radahn is among the greatest bosses that FromSoftware has ever created.
You got some set of balls, you know that?
Now, before you get your lightning bolts and start throwing them at me, I want to say up front, if fighting Radahn just straight up isn't fun for you, well, there's nothing I can do for you there. Fun factor is subjective with every player, just like it is with every boss. But what I can do is explain why from a mechanical and a storytelling perspective, this fight is one of the best. Everyone that I've seen agrees that the first phase is this perfection. Every attack is perfectly telegraphed, and the really quick double slash can be dodged immediately, and even if you don't get it right, it doesn't do a lot of damage. The gravity magic he uses is so damn epic, floating in the air and sending this ring of meteors down at you like it's nothing. Oh, and since he's in Mohg's body, he's now got blood magic. Amazing. Everything you would expect a young Radahn to throw at you, he throws at you, and it's a blast. But then, Phase 2 hits. And I'm sorry guys, I've compared this to others after 4 playthroughs. This is the greatest cutscene FromSoftware has ever created.
Lord Brother. At long last you are returned. Tarnished one. Aspiring lord of the old order. If you have known sin, if you grieve for this world, then yield the path forward to us. To I, Nicola, and my promised consort, Radahn.
Radahn's soul slowly returning to him, Miquella walking out of the gate like a deity that he is, the shot of Radahn just towering over the player, the first time in the entire game we lay eyes on Miquella. This entire cutscene is a work of art. But then you realize, wait, Mohg wasn't the incestuous one, it was Miquella. Wait, get off his back! Look, when I said it's time to dive into the boss, baby, I didn't mean literally, Miquella. The dick is currently in Radahn's ass right now. Hey guys, I think Miquella still obeys the two fingers. Okay, I'll stop now. And then phase 2 starts. Jesus Christ, dude, what is even? Oh, it trails? Okay, it trails. I'd like to fight now, but what?
I promise you a 1,000-year voyage guided by compassion.
What does that even mean? Ah, shit, he did it again.
Lord of the old order, let us go together.
Alright, I don't know what that I'm supposed to do with this. Wait, what just happened? What just happened? What? Now, I feel like to best explain myself, I have to rebut some of the main critiques people have with this fight. Number 1, the final boss is someone I already fought.
Yes, but actually no.
Yeah, this is Radahn again, but it's not Starscourge. You act like this is a reskin fight, which it's not. If it was a reskin of Starscourge Radahn, I'd completely understand the argument, and honestly, I'd be pissed too as a final boss. But this is not even like Morgott, where the fight is sort of similar to Margit. This is a completely different model with a completely different moveset. There's some similarity in the animations, like a different version of the quadruple slash, but other than that, this is not the Radahn you fought in Caelid. Not even close. Number 2, I'm disappointed that we didn't get Godwyn. The one demigod that we never even got to interact with, that we all thought would be in the DLC at some point. He's not here. And yeah, I can understand, and I'm a little disappointed as well, but then I realized, after not seeing him in the DLC, it occurred to me, we can't have Godwyn, because it would ruin the lore behind the Rune of Death. The only way that Miquella was able to revive Radahn was because he had Radahn's soul. Godwyn's soul is gone. There's no way it can come back. And if they did bring him back, it wouldn't make sense from a story standpoint. Oh, one of our demigod souls has been eternally damned and gone by this power that we went through tooth and nail to hide from everyone? Just go to the Shadow Realm. That should fix it. No, that can't happen. Once you're killed by the Rune of Death, you are gone, and that's why it's so heavily guarded by Marika, and that's why every demigod was scared of Malekith. For as powerful as Miquella is, probably the strongest of the demigods, even he cannot bring back his brother, which he has already tried to do. That makes the Rune of Death scary as hell. Now, some people would say, oh, why don't you just reanimate his corpse somehow? Okay, but looking at this gigantic corpse in Deeproot Depths, would a boss this big even be fun to fight? And number 3, there's way too much stuff going on. Now, I thought the exact same thing on my first playthrough. There's way too much stuff happening for the player to properly take in the moveset and understand how to adapt, since they can't get a read on anything since it comes out so quick. But once I beat him and fought him in my second playthrough and even my third playthrough, I realized this is no different than any other Souls boss we faced over the years, and I'm going to explain exactly why. The reason why Promised Consort Radahn is so damn hard is because this is your final test. This is the culmination of every single thing you have learned from every single boss, not only in Elden Ring, but every boss that FromSoftware has ever made. How good are you at distinguishing animations from one another? How good are you at reading attack patterns? And most importantly, how fast can you cut through the bullshit? There is a lot of things happening in this fight, but most of it is the beams of light Radahn leaves after his slashes, which are all from his first phase, which you should have learned if you made it this far. And some people have been saying, you have to double roll through every attack to escape the beams. No, you don't. No, you don't. look at this footage right now. Am I double rolling? Just roll the same way you would roll in the first phase and you'll be fine. The only one you have to adjust to is the double slash, where if you roll back like you've done in the first phase, you'll get caught by the beam that follows. So what do? Dodge forward instead. Boom! Problem solved. There's a lot happening visually on the screen, but that is designed specifically to throw players off their rhythm. Once you realize that, it's business as usual. And then we got what I call the holy moves, the phantoms that Radahn sends out before coming in himself. This is what has stumped most people, including myself when I first did it. But then you realize this is like every attack pattern. Some phantoms don't even do anything and they're there to make you dodge early. Some do attack both times, but leaves more than enough time for you to dodge again before the other hits. Or how about the one that I got destroyed by early? This rapid fire air slash after the meteors. This final attack is ridiculous. It somehow hits you twice, which I don't even know how. But then you see how. A straight beam attack down the middle followed by a wider one. The designers know that players are going to spam dodge, so once you try dodging out of the way, you see the first beam going down the line, right before you get ass blasted by the second one. Then you realize, okay, now that I see what's happening, I can address this. Dodge as soon as he comes down, and then dodge forward. Boom, you figured it out.
Take your fucking twink and get the fuck out of here!
And once you figured out the moves for every attack, it sticks with you. Once you know, you never get fooled again. And it's not like he could switch the speed up on you, so keep doing what you're doing. And by the way, this guy never input reads, which, thank God. But no matter how much you learn the fight, eventually we're all gonna get caught. It's gonna happen. And these attacks deal a lot of damage, and it could be devastating. If there wasn't one small cherry on top of this strategy sundae, the Golden Braid, a talisman that negates the most holy damage. You can find it in the hinterlands. Get the emote from the tree in Bonnie Village, use it in front of the statue, go to the village, get the braid. You don't even need to listen to the strategy to dodging I've been telling you. Just find the talisman, equip it, and tell me this fight isn't more manageable. Look at this footage. Look how much damage is being dealt here. It went from this to this. FromSoftware has gifted you a way to nerf this second phase. You would be a fool for not taking advantage of it. I don't consider myself a good Souls player at all. Like, these clips of me getting pounded early in the fight, there's like 30 more of those that I never even recorded. Like, if you saw me fight any boss on my first few attempts like this, I would lose subscribers. It's pathetic. If I can figure this stuff out after many repeated attempts, anybody can. And that is the beauty of this final boss. It reinforces your skills and tests you on your ability to recognize, to react, and to adapt. But most of all, never be afraid to change things up. Having trouble reading patterns? Be patient and watch. Having trouble with damage? Go find armor or an item that limits it. Can't figure out how to dodge his attack? Well, you know what? Pull out a shield and block it. You know why I'm wearing Letta's armor in both playthroughs here? Because it increases dodge attacks. And if worse comes to worse, go somewhere else to level up and come back stronger. Go respec your character to give you more of an advantage in important areas to your build. Go find more Shadow Tree fragments to make yourself stronger. And after all, this is a test because you've seen this material before. Where did I learn to use items to negate damage? Moog. Where did I learn to pull out a shield when I can't recognize a dodge angle? Malenia. And where did I learn to go somewhere else when I'm having trouble with a boss? Margit. You have seen everything here. It is up to you to learn it. This fight is not like Malenia, where most deaths are coming from one move. There is nothing like that in this fight. This is purely based on your skill level, and that is what makes this fight an all-time great. Aside from the fact that the moves look cool as shit and the music is ridiculously good. This is the final boss in Elden Ring. You're damn right it's going to be the hardest thing you've faced yet. Now it's your job to answer the one question that FromSoftware has always asked you. What are you gonna do about it? Because if you do everything I said, you too can become a demon. Yeah! That's why I think Radahn and Miquella is a great fight. And that is why I think Shadow of the Erdtree is not too hard. Now that that sermon has been given, now we can mention the storytelling and the lore. And it ties into the entire DLC plotline. So let's discuss, shall we? So we knew going in that the DLC would be about Miquella, but we didn't know exactly what we had to do. And now having finished it, I have only one thing to say. Justice for Moog. Mikola has traveled to the Land of Shadow to do God knows what, but we are not the only ones searching for him. Before you even get there, you meet Needle Knight Letta, and she tells you that her comrades are all looking for Mikola the Kind, and they have already made their way to the Land of Shadow to search for him. For God's sake, I rested at the site of grace for 2 seconds. How did 6 people just walk by already? But anyway, as Mikola was the only demigod we didn't fight in the base game, there was all this intrigue around him. We know that he was the kindest, since he went through such lengths to try and cure Malenia's rot and bring back his dead brother Godwyn, and he was set up as probably the most powerful out of all of them, so this is going to be interesting. Throughout the Land of Shadow, you encounter these crosses marked with Mikola's Great Rune, which, as described by the party members, are a type of footprint left by Mikola where he sheds some form of his body or emotions. Now you're probably asking right now, why did he have to do this? Well, because Mikola here is trying to ascend to full godhood, and in order to do that, he has to shed every aspect of his being so that he can be reborn and his age of compassion can come about. Now, on a surface level, this sounds like a perfect world. Who wouldn't want something like this? An age ruled by just kindness and compassion? Sounds like a utopia. Well, that goes out the window the minute you realize Mikola's greatest power is charming people to his will.
Mikola the Kind is a monster, pure and radiant. He wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. There is nothing more terrifying.
So basically, this guy uses the power of love to strip people of their true wants, which is how he has this entire band of followers falling head over heels for him. And the more you explore it, the darker this story becomes, which leads to Ansbach, the boy, the commander of Moog's Pureblood Knights, who through his questline reveals to you the secret rite. In order for Mikola to revive Radahn, who he wants as consort, he needs a vessel for his soul. That vessel is Moog's body, who he needed dead in order for this revival to work, which essentially means Moog was under Mikola's charm the entire time. The plan to steal Mikola's cocoon from the Erdtree was all orchestrated by him to gain access to the Land of Shadow. And it also means that, Mikola is the one into sex with his brothers. What a little freak. Knowing this, Ansbach tried to challenge Mikola to free Moog, but lost very badly and was charmed himself, which is why he's here in this group of followers. Which leads me back to Radahn, because as I mentioned, the storytelling here is pristine, and I'll explain exactly why I think this is. There are those who think him showing up makes no sense lore-wise, and some even say it was retconned when it was originally supposed to be Godwyn, but it wasn't. This was set up in the story trailer years ago. That thing Malenia whispered in Radahn's ear? Mikola awaits thee, O promised consort. This explains Malenia's entire march south to Caelid during the Shattering, and why these two clashed in the first place. Mikola sent Malenia to assassinate Radahn so his soul could go to the Land of Shadow. But of course, that didn't work. But why even want Radahn in the first place? Well, according to his armor, Mikola saw in him strength and kindness. Now, the first part is entirely obvious, but kindness? This guy? This war-loving mongrel is kind? But then you take a step back and you realize the whole reason this man learned gravity magic in the first place was just so he can ride his scrawny horse. If I'm a demigod known for kindness and compassion, and I see you going to those lengths for a simple animal, yeah, I think you would have my attention. Plus, this was also a young Radahn, right before he conquered the stars, which more than likely transformed him into this massive behemoth we fight in Caelid. Ain't no way that guy is compassionate, which is most likely the reason Mikola brought him back in this form. That, or maybe he thinks he's hotter, I'm not sure. And by the way, this was a backup plan, because it is clear that Mikola wanted Godwyn to be his consort, judging by the lengths he went to try and resurrect him. But since that didn't work, Radahn was the next best option. However, when you watch the ending memory here, and you hear Mikola speak of this vow between him and Radahn, what's interesting to me is that we never hear Radahn actually accept this vow. We don't even see him. So it makes you wonder, did he even want this? After thinking about it, I don't think he did, because if you look at the Light of Mikola description, Mikola found one who refused to be embraced. Now, I've seen people say that it's referring to you, the player, but I think that one is Radahn. Now, I know I just said Mikola's charm is strong enough to work on demigods, but if he wanted to charm Radahn, I think he would have just had him comply. After all, if you promise a spot as Elden Lord, that should get the blood pumping. But it's clear Radahn looked at Miquella's plans and said,
I think this is a liability nightmare. You don't have any claims that you can back up, so I'm out.
So he's strong enough to resist this in some way. But if we follow this logic and Radahn refused the offer, Miquella just did it anyway. If he wasn't going to be charmed into agreeing, then he had to die to make it happen. Which, if you're a demigod known for kindness, what the hell, man?
If I need your body, I'll fucking...
What's more messed up is that we fought in the Radahn festival with the idea that we were giving his soul peace, when we were actually damning him to an eternity of servitude. But what's worse about this is that all along, with everything else he discarded on his journey to godhood, Miquella abandoned his most defining trait, his love. Meaning for his whole life, he has charmed people into loving him and is trying to usher in a new age of love and compassion while he will not be able to love them back. Is that messed up or what? But that doesn't matter, because all of a sudden, Miquella's great rune is shattered and his charm is gone, leading all of his followers to regain their wills, but also their doubts. It gets to the point where Leda pretty much becomes a psychopath and starts to hunt down those she deems not fit to follow Miquella, including the Hornsent and Ansbach. And along the way, you also encounter Miquella's discarded half, Saint Trina, who we've read a fair bit about in the base game. And after sending yourself to a nice peaceful sleep 4 times, you hear her voice tell you to kill Miquella and stop his ascendance to godhood, because it will essentially be torture for him. Which immediately gets the biggest simp in the game, Tialie, on your side. But depending on your choices and how well you negotiate, you journey through Inir Elim and you run into the Civil War. The first time I did this, it was 4-on-2 and I hated it. But with careful negotiation, this becomes one of the greatest moments in FromSoftware history. Miquella's followers, once bound by his love, turn on each other in an all-out brawl. On one side, you got Leda, Dryleaf Dane, and Freya, and on the other, you got you, Ansbach, and Tialie, because Mohg must be avenged, and Saint Trina's will must be done. But through all of it, you learn one massive revelation. Aside from failing to direct an assassination which resulted in the nuking of an entire region, the entirety of Miquella's plan was centered around one person, you. In some ways, Miquella is the reason you have even made it this far in your journey through Elden Ring. He allowed Torrent to find his way to Melina, and by proxy, to you. He had Ranni give you the Spirit Bell, which allowed you to summon when you were struggling. He gives you the 2 most important items in the game, all because he needed a Tarnished worthy of being Elden Lord to come along and kill Radahn and Mohg so that his plan could succeed. This final boss may be against the body of Radahn, but Phase 2 is 100% against Miquella. This Radahn is a puppet who doesn't even speak. The final boss of Elden Ring is the demigod who is responsible for your success. Unbeknownst to him, though, there's something else responsible for my success. It's called Rivers of Blood. And I bet it tastes great, doesn't it? I can go on and ask more questions, but let's be honest, we be here all day. The video's long enough anyway, and there's channels way better at exploring that than I am. All I will say is that the story of Miquella is way deeper and darker than we all thought it could be. And through it all, Shadow of the Erdtree finally hammers home the true strength of the strongest demigod of them all, and also the most dangerous. I'm gonna be honest, guys, if there was ever gonna be a time where a DLC was nominated for Game of the Year, this should probably be that time. Shadow of the Erdtree is hands down the best thing I have played all year. I may love Helldivers 2 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but nothing I played this year compares to this, flaws and all. And I'm not the only one who thinks this. And mark my words, if it does get nominated, it's winning. I want you all to cherish this moment, because we are truly living in the time of the greatest run of any video game developer in the history of the industry. And good things don't last forever. There's not much else to say that hasn't already been said about Shadow of the Erdtree. It's a masterpiece. But I guess that's just another day at the office at FromSoftware. Now if I were you, I'd go back to the Land of Shadow for another playthrough. I will not be far behind. May we meet again.